Oh boy, have I been excited to compare these sets. Hey everyone, Ryan here, or M&R Productions, and today I'm comparing the two most recent LEGO Star Wars TIE Fighter models. The version on the left from 2018, the newest version on the right from 2021. We'll be using the M&R comparison system to compare minifigures playability, design / displayability, value, and of course giving my own opinion at the end to get us a final score to figure out which set is better, and hopefully along the way, if you're making a purchasing decision, help you decide on that, or maybe you just watch these to enjoy seeing two sets pitted up against each other. Either way, let's get into some basic information. On the left here, we have the 75211 TIE Fighter from 2018 based off Solo, A Star Wars Story. It retailed for $70 in the United States, adjusted for inflation, that's about $73 in today's money. It had 519 pieces and included 4 minifigures, which we'll get to in a moment. The set on the right, new for 2021, is set 75300, retailing for $40 in the United States. It's the cheapest TIE Fighter we've had in quite a while. Has 432 pieces and 3 minifigures, and of course based off the original trilogy. YouTube unfortunately took away polls, but certainly comment down below which TIE Fighter you think is best. I have done a comparison of every TIE Fighter model recently. However, this video is just obviously of these two models. Perhaps farther off in the future, I will do another TIE Fighter collection video like that one. The Solo Star Wars Story TIE Fighter has quite the figure selection. Of course, it has the TIE Pilot, which is a basic necessity of any TIE Fighter in my opinion, but you also have a Mud Trooper exclusive to the set. You have Han Solo in Mud Trooper exclusive to the set, and you also have a Tobias Beckett that is exclusive to this set as well. So the set comes in on fire with exclusive minifigures off the bat. They all have leg and waist printing, and that is amazing. There's a lot of great looking figures in this set. Love the Mud Trooper, love the Han Solo, love the Tobias Beckett, and of course the TIE Pilot. Maybe not the most attractive minifigure as far as like getting you in the door, but it's a solid figure as well. I think LEGO put together a great selection for this 2018 set, and removing that, you can see we have an angry clone face. For the Mud Trooper, probably going to be more of the same. But you do see these capes for the Mud Trooper and Han Solo there that are really neat as well. So I think LEGO really knocked it out of the park with this 2018 figure selection. Let's see what 2021 brings to the table. So we of course have the TIE Pilot. My particular TIE Pilot does have a bit of a misprint on the helmet. You can see it's downward shifted, but it's still the TIE Pilot. You have the Stormtrooper. We can argue about whether that Stormtrooper helmet is good or bad in the comments. I'm going to tell you it's bad right now. You have Annihilator, whatever you want to call him, as your protocol droid there on the right. And that's your figure selection. No name characters, you know, that's good or bad depending on who you are and what your purchasing rationale is. But for me, I just don't see this figure selection stacking up to that 2018 version very well. The TIE Fighter pilots are the only comparable figures as far as being the same in both sets. And the thing there is that the newer one does have different markings than the older one, or vice versa. I guess you could look at it either way, but they do have different markings on each helmet. You can see kind of the big silver line on the top of the helmet isn't there on the new one, and they actually have 2 silver lines on the front of the helmet, and they don't have that on the older one. So some different markings, but in general going to be very similar figures. And just to show you, angry clone face on the left, newer kind of different faces LEGO have been using on the right. 2018 on the left, 2021 on the right. I think it's a pretty obvious choice. 2018 is the better figure selection for me. Now let's talk playability. I think both sets are pretty even in this category. They're both very swooshable. You can actually pick them up and just kind of spin them very easily. Now what you'll notice is if I hold it like this and I spin it, you can see this tile piece on top or whatever, the printed piece. It's not gonna really turn out of place. However, with this one, I know it's a small thing, but with this one, it's just not held in as well. And so when again, there it is on straight, when I spin it, it just tends to spin a little bit out of place. Sometimes it gets way out of whack, just depends. And yeah, that's just something that's a little bit looser on top. It doesn't directly affect playability, but when you're playing with it, it certainly will get all out of whack. And I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing. I certainly wouldn't call it a good thing. Now, both sets do have spring-loaded shooters on them. In the 2018 set's case, they are red. In 2021, they changed over to green, which I like. You know how spring-loaded shooters work if you've watched any LEGO videos recently, I'm sure. Push down on them, and they fire like that. The 2021 version is going to be more the same. Pushing down on the stud shooters makes them fire off. Both of those work exactly the same. And then you can also place the pilot within the cockpit of both sets, so you can drop down the front and top pieces, and then you can drop your pilot inside. The 2021 version has a newer updated cockpit style there with some red pieces to use for controlling the TIE Fighter. I think that looks pretty cool. Close those up, and then 2018 gonna be more of the same, just with a bit of a different style for the interior there. A little bit more spacious, but I don't really think that's gonna affect the playability of these sets. You put that up and close everything down, and just like that, you have your pilots and ready to fly around. I think it's a pretty even game as far as playability goes. They both have 2 spring-loaded shooters. You can fly them both around by hand. I just don't see what the difference is as far as play features, so I'm going to give them both a point for it. The design and display category is certainly an interesting one. Obviously, the 2018 version is a bit bigger than the 2021 version. It just has a larger footprint in general with more pieces and just bigger pieces. So that's certainly a thing to take note of when thinking about whether or not you want to display one or the other, because one is going to take up more space. It depends on how much shelf space you may have. And it also depends on what you're looking for, if you want a model that is like dominant in the space, or if you just want something that kind of hides away with the 2021 version. But that aside, as far as design goes, they are surprisingly similar. LEGO got the shapes down on the wings pretty well on each set, using different pieces to detail it, of course, but I think they both come across similarly enough, and I do like the tiling on the newer one compared to the studs on the older one. It's just a bit of a different style, but I think the biggest drawback, other than size, with the newer one is this clip hinge piece, whatever you want to call it, right here. With the ball joint, they had to use dark gray instead of light gray. Light gray would certainly be the proper color. You want it all to match, and in 2021's case, they did not make it match. They went ahead and used a piece that's the improper color. They didn't bother to make it in the right color. They probably have some stupid rule in their design philosophy book that says if you have these 2 pieces, they have to be different colors or whatever, because kids can't figure it out. I don't know what the deal is exactly, but for some reason or another, we ended up with 2 pieces that aren't the same color there on the front, like we have had historically on like every TIE Fighter ever. So I don't know exactly why, but they're different colors, and just like as a fact, it looks bad. Like, it's not supposed to look that way. Now, not to say that the 2018 TIE Fighter is infallible, because you can see a bit of blue peeking through. Don't like that very much. I wish they would have used black underneath the design. Would have solved that problem, but they didn't. They used that to make it easier in the building process or whatever the case is, and it ended up looking pretty rough when you can see it as you peer through the side of the wing. Now, the cockpit piece, windshield piece, did get a bit of a redesign. You can actually see it's a bit, I would call it simpler, and the lines are thicker on this one compared to the 2018 version here. You can see it just has more little details, like little rivets or screws or whatever they are in the windshield piece, versus this one, which is just like plain gray with some lines. I don't know. Very similar in that way. You, of course, have the same printed tile on the top, like I mentioned, but the one on the 2021 version is a lot more prone to sliding around than the version in 2018. I mean, this spins really, really easily because there's just not a lot of friction for it with the tiled-off design. Speaking of tiled-off design, you can see no studs really outward showing on the front here versus 2018, which showed a lot more studs. That was kind of the design philosophy of this one, and that was fine. Now, for the inside of the wings, I actually like the inside of the wings on the newer version better because it's just all black. This one, they put a lot of gray in there. I also do like the shaping of the interior, because what basically is supposed to be on the inside of TIE Fighter wings is this same design shape, which they actually replicate here really well. They also kind of do the same here, but then they add a bunch of dark gray. And then you're supposed to kind of have these same gray lines emanating from that, and you don't have that on either set, but I think the 2021 version, as far as the inside part of the wings, looks a little bit better. Now, both sets have unique mechanisms to hold the wings in. On the 2018 version, you have clips, which if you pull it away, you can see the clips there, just like that. It's kind of an interesting mechanism, versus 2021, which is going to have Technic pieces, actually. It's kind of surprising to me, because they created this whole building system for that TIE Fighter, and they kind of threw it away after a couple iterations. But this works just as well, in my opinion. They use a specialized 6x6 piece with some Technic pieces there to go ahead and accomplish this. But in general, I think both work. The simpler design in 2021 is certainly noticeable. But as far as design goes, which set's better? I think the bigger footprint of the 2018 version is hard to argue with. I also find things like the sliding piece on top to be rather distracting because that gets all bent out of shape and then the set looks rather inaccurate. I almost forgot, the other problem with these ball joint hinges is that you can push them out of whack like that and they can be moving all over versus these ones, which you obviously can't because it's just a straight connection, not a ball connection. So just a small thing there. But as far as better design, I think 2018 has it. Not by as much as you would think, but definitely 2018. So let's talk about the value of these TIE fighters. Which set is the better value? Of course, you can't buy these both at retail price right now, but hypothetically speaking, the version on the left, again, $70 for 519 pieces. The version on the right from 2021, $40 for 432 pieces. And I think these two sets are a prime example of why I do not like when people bring up price per piece as far as which set should cost this much and whatnot. Like, a price per piece to me is very irrelevant to most Lego set conversations. And in this case, I think it's very true. 519 pieces. This one ends up at about 13 cents per piece, while the 2021 set ends up at about 9 cents per piece. But I think we can all see the obvious. I shouldn't have to say it. The 2018 set uses much larger pieces in general than the 2021 set, so it makes sense that it would use less pieces to create a much bigger design, thus costing more money. Does that make sense? I hope it does, because if it doesn't, I think we have a problem. On top of that, for your $70, you have 4 characters, 3 of which I would argue are pretty desirable, and on top of that, exclusive to the set. I mean, whether or not that specifically costs Lego more money to make or produce is kind of irrelevant. The value in the eyes of the consumer should be there, that you're getting 3 characters that you can't get otherwise, and hey, maybe this Mud Trooper is worth $20 on eBay. That's part of the value of the set, whether or not you like it. I think that's worth saying. But the 2021 version also provides a pretty decent value. I think for $40, it's basically a value TIE fighter, and I don't see anything wrong with that. Your figures aren't as coveted, maybe, as the ones from the Solo A Star Wars Story TIE fighter, but you do get some decent figures with one exclusive in NIL8. Maybe that TIE fighter pilot is exclusive. I'm not exactly sure on the markings, but it's still a TIE fighter pilot at the end of the day. But I think both TIE fighters provide a fair value. I think for $70, you're getting a really good, solid, the best, if you will, playset TIE fighter model. And for $40, you're getting a really fun, cute, small, kind of good gift to give TIE fighter model that is good for the money, right? Like, I think both these sets are good for the money. I know people like to look at, again, the price per piece, but I think it's irrelevant. You could make this set have more pieces arbitrarily by using some of the bigger pieces they use, called these 2x6 plates here. You know, instead you use a 2x4 and a couple of 2x2. You know, you could really just inflate that piece count artificially, and I don't think that it's fair to look at price per piece. I think both these sets are really fair values. I have a hard time actually picking which set I think is a better value, and for that reason, I think they're both kind of even value-wise. As far as my opinion between both sets, I think I was very surprised by how much I like the 2021 model for its downsize. It ended up being a really good model, and I think it's worth picking up if you don't own a TIE Fighter yet. If you own the 2018 TIE Fighter, I don't really see a reason to buy the newer TIE Fighter. The characters don't excite, certainly, so yeah, I think that if you don't own one, it's good. If you're buying it as a gift for a kid who it would obviously be their first TIE Fighter, they're going to be perfectly content and happy with it. But for like a hardcore collector like me, it obviously isn't going to stack up to the older set, and that's fine, I guess. I think I can live with that in this particular case, but I think the 2018 version is certainly better. It's got better figures, it's got the better build, it's basically even to me value-wise for your money, so that's the way that I look at it. Certainly let me know what you guys think in the comments section below. I think both sets are worth owning if you have the ability to own them, but you could certainly live without the 2021 version if you already have a more recent TIE Fighter from, say, 2012, or even if you have the first order one, I think you can do without it, or 2018, obviously. So the final score of 5-2, the 2018 TIE Fighter is victorious. By the way, that 2 is very ugly. Yes, now you are going to skip back 5 seconds to see what that 2 looked like. Yes, easily the worst 2 I've ever written on paper. But let me know what you guys think about these in the comment section below. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe, leave a like if you enjoyed, and you can check out more LEGO Star Wars comparisons on the end screen now.